But joining us right now is the author of a brand new book that everybody has to go out and buy. It's called Free the Press: The Death of American Journalism and How to Revive It. Please welcome investigative journalist Brian J. Karem. Hello, Brian. Are you there, Brian? Did he run away?
No, he's here. He's muted, David.
Oh, I'm a little, I'm telling you the God's honest truth. I'm on decaf today. Here we go. I'm sorry, Brian. Sorry to keep you waiting. Welcome, Brian. Let me unmute you. There you go. This is now
we're good.
We're almost there.
Yeah.
How are you, sir?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm much better now that you're here. I know you have a hard out. Let's sell some books and hopefully you'll come back. I apologize for keeping you waiting.
That's okay.
Your book, Free Press: The Death of American Journalism and How to Revive It. When you look at what's going on in Ukraine, and they've shut down RT America, whether or not that's a propaganda arm for Putin, we still need sources of information. When you look at the consolidation of wealth in journalism, local news is just bloodshed, crime. How bad has it gotten here in America when it comes to journalism?
Well, every place I've ever worked at has been bought out, sold, or closed over the last 40 years. When I first got into the business, 80% of what you see, read, or hear was owned by about 20 companies. Today, a mere 5 or 6 companies own more than 90% of what you see, read, or hear. We need to bust up the media monopolies. We need to give tax incentives and low interest loans to community journalism, because that's where real journalism, that's the backbone of journalism. We need to have governments, and this is at the state, local, and federal level, they've gotten rid of public notice ads. So, announcing when the city council is going to have a meeting or an estate sale or any of the other things that were always in public notice ads have gone away. So their transparency in local, state, and federal governments no longer exist. And that subsidy to small newspapers no longer exists. And for many small newspapers, that was the difference between succeeding or dying. They say newspapers are dead, and that's true because we've killed them. If we invested in them, they'd still exist. They're very viable and very valuable. They provide information that cannot be hacked, cannot be changed. A newspaper I hold in my hand today that was printed in 1850 still says the same thing as it said in 1850. It's finite, it's valuable in a court of law, and it's valuable to help build communities. So it's bad, but it can get better if we bust up media monopolies, if we reinstitute the fairness doctrine, if we provide for journalists a shield law so journalists don't go to jail if they have, if they protect confidential sources. All of those things will help revive it, but you've got to have a government that understands it and will support it. And every president since Ronald Reagan, every single one, Democrat, Republican, all of them have contributed to the demise of journalism. So it's going to take an active legislature and an interested executive branch to bring it back.
Well said. What did our founding fathers say about a free and open press?
Well, Thomas Jefferson, who, by the way, hated the press, said, if he had the choice between a free press and government, he'd surely take the press. There's a reason for that. All voices need to be heard. If you don't allow voices to be heard, then they fester in darkness and they grow in darkness. And you cannot present facts to people if you don't know they're there or if you can't get to them. So vetting facts is important. Today we live in informational silos where we listen to the news that we want instead of the news that we need. And that's a huge problem. And that won't change until we bring back the fairness doctrine. That has to be done. There are a number of things that aren't being done that should be done. And if they're done, within a generation we'll be okay. But Look, we have vast and militant ignorance in today's press. I walk up into the press room. The very first day I walked in the White House press briefing room in 1986, I met Helen Thomas and Sam Donaldson. And Sam pointed to the front row in the Brady briefing room. He said, Brian, there's probably more than 200 years of experience, about 220 years of experience in that front row. Listen to every single one of them. And then he pointed to Helen and he said, and she's probably got 200 of it. And Helen said something smart to Sam, and Sam said, hey, Helen, it's okay to have an unexpressed thought. And she said, Sam, when it comes to you, I have a lot of unexpressed thoughts. And I didn't know what else I was going to do for a living, but I knew I was in the right place. Today, in that first row in the Brady briefing room, there may be 30, 40 years of experience. There are kids that get straight out of school. They leave school and go straight to the White House. You should have 5 or 10 years of experience before you're allowed to be a White House reporter, just so you can know what's going on, so you can speak truth to power, so you don't practice access journalism, and so you don't kiss the butt of the people in government. Our job is to hold their feet to the fire, not to kiss their cookie.
Even Ducey, the Ducey kid, you got to love him, even though he's a Fox News.
Everybody there has a place there, and asking tough questions. I don't think it's gotcha. Look, it's a well thought out.
There's nothing wrong with gotcha questions. There should people. I'm not a journalist. I do a podcast that people say to me, "Why don't you ever say anything good about Joe Biden?" That's not my job to say. I'm not a publicist for the Democratic Party. My job is to criticize everything about this country. Yes, you encourage the good, but right now there's way too much bad to focus on, to pat on the back and say you're doing a good job. What is news? How do you define it?
I define news as imparting of information of a factual nature to a public, whether they want to hear it or not. If I'm just going to publish what they want me to publish, that's called propaganda. Investigative reporting and journalism by nature is presenting to people information they may not want to hear and they may have difficulty hearing, but it always should be vetted. It should always be factual. My definition of news is bringing information to the public, vetted information.
I was having a play date with some new friends up in Albany, one of whom is in your business. And I asked about how you create a story, and what you choose to present first is subjective because you're saying this is more important than something else.
Well, and it depends on the story. Look, if you go to cover a fire, what's the most important thing? I've mentored and I've hired a lot of young reporters, and a lot of them have come up to me and go, "Hey, I got an idea for a story. This is what I think." And I go, "I don't care what you think. I barely care what I think. What do you know?" Mm-hmm. What do you know? So I get to a fire. What's the first thing I see? A building engulfed in flames. Firefighters fighting. They're dragging people out. It's letting people know in real time, often at spot news events, what's happening. So you categorize it. I teach people to categorize those things by injuries or deaths to humans first, property damage second. There's a method of doing news. Politics is subjective, but everyone will agree we all want paved streets, we all want lights to work, we all want electricity, all of that stuff. So you prioritize the presentation of news by who it affects most. How many people are affected most? There's a trick to doing it, and you cannot do it overnight. And I'm 40 years in this business, and I'm still learning. That's right. But I want to prioritize so people understand exactly what's going on at exactly what time, and without my opinion on what's important. That's called an editorial. The presentation of facts, there's a logical way of doing it, and we need to stress that more than ever today, and a lot of people don't do it.
Yeah, we're talking with Brian Karem. He is the author of Free the Press, The Death of American Journalism and How to Revive It. It really is on life support. I get most of my information from overseas.
one of the biggest problems we have are vulture capitalist groups, the venture capitalist groups that go and buy out.
Is it Alden Capital?
Yes, that's one of them. There's iHeartRadio, does it in radio, Sinclair in television. All of these, there was a time when unions still ruled in our business, and we went to Congress and we said, listen, limit the number of ownership of newspapers, radio, and television stations in order to benefit the most amount of people by making sure that there are enough reporters out on the street. There are twice the number of people on this planet as on the day I was born, half the number of reporters. Constriction in this business has destroyed real journalism.
Yeah. Let's go through the presidents, because Donald Trump, to his credit, and I'm being serious, was honest. He called the press the enemy of the people, and he believed that. And he didn't
believe anything he says. Donald Trump is a grifter and a con man. He said the reason why he said that is because he didn't want anybody believing what we said bad about him. Donald Trump is the worst, but I'm sorry, every single president I've covered has screwed over the First Amendment.
Who locked up the most members of the press here in the United States? Who enforced the Espionage Act the most?
Barack Obama used the Espionage Act 8 times to go after whistleblowers. Bill Clinton introduced the 1996 Telecommunications Act, which led to iHeartRadio and multiple ownership. Ronald Reagan got rid of the Fairness Act and allowed consolidation in television stations. George Bush II put out the wonderful Patriot Act, which allows them to spy on reporters without having any kind of notice in court that they're going to do it. There's no president that I can point to that's been exemplary. Our current president on the campaign trail said he would go after the people who killed Jamal Khashoggi, and then he would hold MBS and the state of Saudi Arabia accountable. And then as soon as he got in office, he didn't do it. There isn't one single president who has told me the truth and who cares about the press. This isn't politics. This is free speech. I'm sorry. I don't like any of them.
What do you think of Julian Assange's extradition? We're still trying to bring him to America for violating the Espionage Act.
What you care about Julian Assange doesn't matter. What he did was an act of journalism. So that you have to defend the act, and you can dislike the guy all you want, but what he did was turn over information and making it available to the public. Now, if you want to split hairs on it, have at it. But that act of journalism should be defended.
If a journalist gets the fruit illegally, is he entitled to release it to the media? It won't hold up in court.
What do you mean? What's illegally? Define.
I'm just saying that if somebody were to hack into the DNC's server
and hand information over to a reporter?
Yes.
If someone hacked into the DNC server and handed me the information, I would go public with it, and I would go public with who hacked it. I'm under no obligation to protect the son of a bitch if he's a criminal, but I'm also if it's newsworthy information, I'll present it, but I'll also tell everyone how it was gotten and let the chips fall where they may. And I wouldn't flee the country.
I'm sorry?
And I wouldn't flee the country.
I don't think Julian Assange was ever in this country.
No, I'm talking about someone else who
Edward Snowden.
Yeah.
Edward Snowden. Right. What if you're a journalist and they give you, they hacked something and you can verify that it is accurate, but they don't want to be named. They're doing it anonymously.
I'm under no obligation to respect anyone. The idea of that someone says, hey, off the record, and you give it is bogus. I mean, I've had people come up and say, listen, very famously, I had in a newsroom in San Antonio in 1986 or 87, I killed someone, but that's off the record. I said, no, it's not. Well, I said it was off the record. Well, good for you. I didn't. The idea of off the record rests with the reporter. And if you're responsible, you use it very judiciously and very rarely. And when you do it, you stand by it. And if they burn you, if they lie to you, you burn them. I'm under no obligation to defend a liar, and I won't do it.
Right. Prior restraint. I'm sorry?
or a murderer for that matter.
Right. Is there ever an incident where prior restraint uh, should be used?
No, none that I can think of, and that's been challenged quite a bit. I think that prior restraint to publication is anathema and leads to authoritarianism and a squelching of the First Amendment.
Wasn't prior restraint
hard out? So I
Oh,
would
okay.
love to talk about this forever, but I have another hit in about 5 minutes, so I have to go. But I'd love to come back.
Yeah, and I would love to have you back, and this is something that I care very much about. Please go by Free the Press: The Death of American Journalism and How to Revive It. It gets the Feldman guarantee if you buy the book and you don't get a fire lit underneath your feet, I will reimburse you. That's how much I believe in Brian Karem and his book, Free the Press: The Death of American Journalism and How to Revive It. And please come back.
Thanks, I will. Thank you.